We're the Good Neighbor Network, FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna, audio and video streaming at wgnsradio.com. This is the Roundtable. A look at the news, views, politics, and people that are shaping Rutherford County.
Good morning. This is Bill Krause on the weekly Thursday edition of the WGNS Radio Roundtable on a kind of a cloudy morning, but this is fall time and we have to enjoy the fall weather and perhaps rain on the way. We're having a visit this morning with a dear friend, colleague, associate for many, many years, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bobby Welch. Good morning, Bobby.
Yes, it is a good morning. How are you, Bill?
I'm doing fine. And Bobby, how are things in Florida?
I tell you, this is a place to live, but keep it a secret. If we weren't here, we'd be in Tennessee right now.
And what part of Florida do you want to tell our audience you're residing in?
We're in the secret place called the Panhandle, which somehow Florida wrested away from Alabama. It's really South Alabama, except it's carved out to almost Mobile, Alabama, so they could have a coastal port. But it's about a 50-mile to 100-mile stretch that they call appropriately the Panhandle.
And this morning we're going to initially start out honoring our veterans because this coming Monday is Veterans Day. We used to call it Armistice Day. Actually, most people forget that there was a fake Armistice Day on the 7th of November when the Americans and the Germans in World War I thought they were going to have an armistice, and it apparently fell through, so it became officially November 11th. Tell us about your military career. I'd like to initially honor that part of your rather extensive and comprehensive life.
Well, thank you, Bill. I appreciate the opportunity. I wear a B-52 cap from the 5th Bomb Wing from my 3,500 hours in B-52s from 1963 until 1971. Not the airplanes that I flew in, the later version, the H model, 6 of them as we speak, are over in the Qatar area in the Middle East. Several more are in Finland. And this is a lot of show and tell because this is going on around the world. But those B-52s started in 1951. So they're expected to last 100 years. I'm not flying in them, but they're still flying. But yes, I had that, and then I had a combat tour in Thailand. And first, believe it or not, the Constellation, which was a civilian aircraft made into a military, called the MC-121. And then EB-66 during the critical war period that led up to our final ending of the hostilities in Vietnam. So that sure tells people how old I am.
That you're very young. We got to say, very young, Bobby.
I like that, Bill, because you are forever young.
I'd like to say non-mature. So you spent a total of how many years with the United States Air Force?
I had 21 years active and 5 years inactive Navy, and then Air Force Reserve, so 27 years.
How did you take a recess into the Navy?
Well, I went to the United States Merchant Marine Academy. Father was a tugboat captain, and I was going to follow in his wake. Unfortunately, severe cases of vertigo got in the way, and so I said I was going to give up my place for someone who didn't get motion sick and stay motion sick for 5 days because you can't function. You can't even stand up. So that ended that career. Fortunately, it didn't affect my flying, but it certainly did, ships.
Riding ships. What inspired you to join the Air Force versus the other branches?
That is an excellent question. One, I had one flight and I enjoyed it so much that that's what I wanted to do. And unfortunately, also eyesight problems came in the way. So instead of going in as a pilot, I went in as a navigator and electronic warfare officer. So I got all my tickets, multi-engine instructors, and so forth after I retired. But by that time, they weren't hiring 44-year-olds for the airline, so I moved on. But aviation is my love.
Even when you fly in recent years as a passenger, do you look out the window and you're already assuming certain observations?
I always get the window seat.
And what are you looking for out there? Where you might land if you had to do an emergency landing?
Well, a lot of people don't realize this, but at no time in aviation, except over the water, is a commercial airline, nor should you flying private, be at an altitude at which you could not glide into an airport. So when you're flying commercial, they get up to an altitude, no matter what happens, lose all of their power, they can glide into an airport large enough to handle them. You feel better?
Absolutely, and it's kind of interesting, and for the people of Rutherford County, certainly air activity is extraordinarily important. We have two significant airports here, certainly the airport in Murfreesboro and certainly the airport in Smyrna, and they both serve a lot of private and even commercial, not commercial, but contract flights. So air activity is extraordinarily important. I'd like to kick off our tribute to our veterans, and I do this every year. I read perhaps one of my most favorite poems that was initially published in the Saturday Evening Post in 1945. That's a few years ago. But it's called They Kept the Faith by Joseph Auslander. And it's dedicated to the 4 chaplains who gave up their lives in World War II. 4 men of God put out to sea, Washington, Poling, Fox, and Good. Their God was one, though their faiths were 3, and the men who worshiped their God were free, where the cross and the star together stood. They held high service to the Lord, Protestant, Catholic, and Jew. On the Dorchester's heaving decks, the word flamed like the seraph's blinding sword. 3 faiths, 1 blazing truth they knew. That morning in the cold, cold gray light off Greenland where the icebergs churned, their ship was blasted, stiff and white. The troops stood frozen, stark with fright. The fearsome waters boiled and burned. Swiftly the 4 priests comforted the frantic, urged them to the floats, quieted terror, blessed the dead, prayed, strapped the boys in life belts, led the wounded, helped them to the boats. The last life raft was filled, the last life belt strapped on, yet they must save the few to whom no belts were passed. The Dorchester was sinking fast into a cold and treacherous grave. There was no other choice to make as they stood at the jaws of hell. The doomed ship was about to break. They stripped their life belts off, said, "Take these belts, God go with you as well." They asked of no man whence he came, or at what altar did he pray. Gentile and Jew were all the same before their eyes. They spoke God's name and gave their own life belts away. They linked their arms, the Lord they praised, 4 chaplains in the teeth of death, and said their prayers, their voices raised above the dying and the dazed, and blessed the ship with their last breath. 4 men of God went down at sea, Washington, Poling, Fox, and Good, bound by a passion for liberty and a burning faith that keeps men free in the bond of human brotherhood. And why may we not live together as these 4 brave men died together? That's our tribute and dedication to our veterans in 2024.
That is awesome. My goodness, you're a good reader.
Well, I learned well in the first grade, I guess.
Yes, may I May I recite a true story of about 2 months ago?
Sure, please.
Okay, a friend of mine, good friend, a preacher's kid, a graduate of the Air Force Academy, had a good friend who graduated with him, one of the best wrestlers ever at the Academy, and he took a Marine Corps commission, and he ended up in Vietnam, and he was on tour with 2 enlisted, one of whom tripped a wire for a mine, and it killed the 2 of them and spread their parts over him. He seriously considered suicide. He was so sad. But then my friend's wife began having kidney problems. Even though my friend's pastor offered his kidney, it wasn't a match, but my friend's a Marine did, and he came to visit them. They checked, and it was a match. And in the recovery room, he said, "Now I know why I didn't commit suicide. It was God's message to me to donate the kidney." So as we're driving along, he's in the left lane passing traffic, and I said, "Have you thought of the possibility that your wife may have Agent Orange in that kidney?" I had to literally grab the steering wheel as he nearly lost control.
Wow.
What? Absolutely.
Has she been checked or?
They are going through that now because this. And then I lightened it up a little bit. I said, "Hey, maybe she could be the first non-combatant with Agent Orange."
Wow.
And go to the VA.
So general comments about our veterans. We still have millions of veterans. We no longer have them from World War I, and the greatest generation of World War II are passing on a daily basis. The unforgotten war, or the forgotten war, I should say, Korea. A number of veterans still alive from Korea. That's a war that we totally have forgotten about, and the men and women that sacrificed so much back in 1950 through 53. And of course, Vietnam, a great number of people who spent time and effort, trauma, who came back in Vietnam, and then our subsequent actions all the way up through Iraq and Afghanistan. But millions of people who have spent and devoted their time as veterans. And take a moment this coming Monday, November 11th, to say thank you and bless you for the service that you have done, not only for America, but the service for your fellow citizen.
And they're still serving.
Yes.
They're still, they know. When you see a veteran get up out of his wheelchair to offer it to the widow of a young military, even though he can barely get out of the wheelchair, you create a love for people that just transcends all belief. They are a caring group, and hallelujah, the Veterans Administration of today has improved so greatly that still too many veterans don't realize how it has changed. So I encourage all veterans, for anything associated with your military service, to go. They will give you an advocate, the American Legion, the VA, the Tennessee Veterans Association, and so for all of these are looking after veterans, as they well should.
And Murfreesboro and Rutherford County, of course, are extraordinarily lucky, I'll put it that term, to have a fantastic VA hospital right in Murfreesboro that provides quality service to many, many folks, not only in Rutherford County, but throughout Middle Tennessee. So if you're at the VA hospital, both as an employee or as a volunteer, thank you for your service as well.
A good friend, friend of mine named Levi Rosecrans. Does that name ring a bell in that area?
Not to me. I think of Rosecrans. That was a main street in L.A. County.
And that was named after his great-grandfather.
Oh, really?
Yeah, as was the parks around there, and he was a hero in the battle there in South Tennessee.
Wow.
But McClellan took all the credit, so he resigned and became an engineer. And it's the Rosecrans Boulevard is named after him, as are many monuments there in Tennessee.
I think there's a VA cemetery in San Diego. Am I thinking correctly?
Oh yes.
The Rosecrans cemetery name.
Rosecrans.
Wow. Huh. Now we got a little bit of information. Let's turn the page, and I think we're going to turn the page about commonality rather than revisit discussion of conflicting nature. We just have gone through an election. I think I would like to start out that discussion that I'm looking for the analysts, and I'm looking for the commentators, and I'm looking for the experts, I'm looking for the people with great opinion to say overall the election process itself went rather well. If you think about it, I do have to give compliments to your state where you live, Florida. I've never seen an election count go so quickly with a population of that large size and certainly comprehensive nature.
Well, it took a lot of planning. Some time ago, we started giving away free alligators to anyone who wanted to move to Florida from other states.
I like that. I like that.
Next will be a rattlesnake. But
yeah.
I can sum this up as to what has gone on. In 2014, 121 million people voted. In presidential. In 2008, 129 million. In 2012, 126 million. In 2016, 128 million. In 2020, 155 million. In 2024, a little bit over 130 million. You see any anomaly there?
Absolutely. We can certainly spend discussion on 2020, and I always think that was the major issue. Nobody took the total and said, how did we get that percentage of total potential registered voters to vote in the 2020 election? I would say that the excitement and turnout in the Obama elections of 2008 and 2012 generated a voting population that was larger than normally from non-traditional areas. But 2020, and we probably just have to put that to bed and say, what lessons did we learn? Well, it looked like 2024, even though it may have had some slight problems out of 130 million people voting, it went rather smoothly. It was democracy in its given form.
Well, you have to have, we can't have it. If we have a one-party side, if everybody voted for one, it's over as far as democracy is concerned. You will never have, if you ever have one side voted, that's controlled.
Exactly.
That is not democracy. So the voting follows, as does most things in nature and analysis, follows a normal curve. So that's how we do the predictions. So you are going to have some people that are far left, let's say, and some are far right. But as you approach the center, the mean, median, and mode, you're going to get up to that to where it should be close. So these numbers did not vary that much except for the big hiccup in 2020. So obviously, were they legal? Who will ever know? You can't know. But that was a big jump in the number of people going to an election. Now we're back to the normal spread, and it's going to be 51-49, 52-48, one side or the other forever, probably.
Well, the larger we become in population, the more differences will occur because people will promote the differences to retain their independence. This is interesting that when we were a population of 150 million, going back to our younger days, you didn't have as much divide because people didn't form into specific groups to represent themselves. When you're a country of 330, 340 million people, people gravitate to protect their identity and protect their uniqueness by aligning with specific groups, very conservative or very liberal or everything in between. But the main thing, watching this election, can we predict the next several months? Can we predict them? And I have my classes currently predict. I have to say at this particular point for our audience, Bobby and I go way back. We were colleagues at, I don't know how many schools in California in teaching.
About 5.
5. And we would always, not always, but many times be asked to do the graduation ceremonies at some of the schools. And we were known as the Bobby and Bill team. I allowed you to get first billing because of your excellence and of your great command of quality and things to be done. But basically, we have talked politics. We have had classes to motivate the students to become interested, to become involved. And I'll talk about that in a moment. But basically, it's a new day. I'm not going to say a great day because I'll leave that up for people to interpret. But the interesting point is, and I probably told many, many people, watch the stock market Wednesday, the day after the election. That will tell you more than anything you can think about. How did you interpret a 1,500-point jump in the Dow Jones?
It's confidence. It's just, one, with President Trump, you've had someone who's been president for 4 years. So he's been vetted. So it's not as big a surprise, but think about this. What if he had won re-election? He would be finishing his tours now, and then we would be facing almost the situation that we're facing anyhow around the world.
Correct.
And so he's coming in at a time where it is going to take some incredible leadership. And I'm not criticizing the administration because we don't know all of the truth of what's been going on.
Exactly.
And that's how it will always be, because that you cannot function with the other governments if they know that everybody's going to know what they're doing behind closed doors.
I want to talk more about that. We have to take a break, but we're visiting with a dear, dear friend, a dear colleague, a gentleman who has a broad understanding and grasp of what the world is like, is very strong in his opinions, and I'll say in honor of Veterans Day, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bobby Welch from the beautiful state of Florida.
Choosing the right insurance can be overwhelming. That's where Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance comes in. At Rayburn, we're not just about policies, we're about people. Rick Hall will take the time to understand your needs and find the best coverage at the best price. We've been serving our community since 1973. So why not let Rick Hall take the stress out of insurance? Rick Hall at Rayburn Insurance Agency, where you're more than just a policy number. You're our neighbors.
Parents, you can help your child sharpen their basketball skills while also encouraging positive spiritual change with First Shot Basketball Skills Academy and Winter League. Sign-ups are happening now. Led by Coach Andy Herzer, this teaching league is designed to build strong foundations not just for athletics, but for life. If your child is between 5 and 14 years old, they can participate at Hooptown this winter. Don't wait, spots are filling up fast. For more information and to sign up, visit firstshottn.org. That's firstshottn.org.
At Middle Point, we want to be part of the solution. That's why we're making significant investments in proactively enhancing our facilities to integrate sustainable solutions.
Mike Klassen with Middle Point Landfill.
We invite you to learn more about us at middlepointlandfill.com.
Middle Point Landfill is an environmentally safe, economical, and reliable solution for solid waste for Rutherford County.
Republic Services, we are sustainability in action.
Bucks, cash, bread, coin, dough, bank, loot, cheddar. Whatever you call it, the Cash Instant games from the Tennessee Lottery have lots of it. 4 great games absolutely loaded to the brim with top prizes from $50 to $1,000. Now that's a whole lot of cabbage. Moolah, cheese, dinero, Benjamins. Well, you get the idea. Only from the Tennessee Lottery. Game-changing fun. Please play responsibly.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues? Who are you? Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
This is Good Neighbor Events with Bart Walker. Brought to you by the law offices of John Day and AmeriCare Pest Control.
I've got pests, bees, buzzing, rodents running all through my house. Ants chewing wood, and look, there's a mouse. I'm overrun with pests, but you're gonna be sure, safe and secure. It's the last rites for those pests. Call the best of the best to get rid of your pests.
893-7111. AmeriCare Services Incorporated. Call us today. 893-7111.
Now WGNS Good Neighbor Events. Learn more about local history. Head over to the one-room Ransom Schoolhouse every Saturday morning from 9 until noon. It's all free, including the coffee and donuts. Local history talks by members of the Rutherford County Historical Society. That's Saturday mornings, 9 until noon. And Ransom School is at 717 North Academy Street. There are some great plays to enjoy. Beautiful, the Carole King musical. That's playing at the Center for the Arts in Uptown Murfreesboro, along with the classic Guys and Dolls at the Art Center of Cannon County in neighboring Woodbury. And John Steinbeck's Of Mice and Men is performed by Bravo Borough. That's at the Mills Pate Arts Center on the Old Nashville Highway. We also remind you that the Red Cross is critically low on blood. So please give the gift of life to our local Red Cross. Right now, phone them and set up an appointment to give blood at a time that fits your schedule. Phone 800-RED-CROSS. WGNS is happy to list your Good Neighbor events. Try to get them to us a month before they happen. Those are WGNS Good Neighbor events.
Rutherford weather.
We'll see a few spotty showers and thunderstorms at times here this afternoon with cloudy skies, a high in the mid-70s. Tonight, mostly cloudy and a low near 59. I'm meteorologist Jennifer Wojcicki on News Radio WGNS. Currently, it's 69.
Broadcasting from the Middle Tennessee Electric Studios, MTE Sharing Change has now donated more than $11 million to local nonprofits assisting worthy causes in our community. MTE, serving to make life better since 1936.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
This is Bill Krause in the second segment of the WGNS Radio Roundtable, Thursday morning edition, and we're having a delightful chat with a dear friend and colleague for so many years, retired Lieutenant Colonel Bobby Welch of the U.S. Air Force. Welcome back, Bobby.
Well, good to be back.
I want to, before we totally go off the salute to the veterans, I think we also want to salute the families of veterans. You know, we assume that the men and women who have given their time, many of them unfortunately given their lives or their injuries and lifelong tragedies and disabilities, we also want to give our salute to the spouses, the children, the parents, the siblings of people who have been in the armed forces. And I think too often we don't say thank you to them too, because they, have given up a member of their family to help serve this wonderful country.
Thank you for mentioning that. That reminds me, and I might have told you this story, that we sent tape recordings to each other so they could hear, but I still have a letter from our older daughter who said, I love you, but I don't remember who you are.
Wow. I don't think you'd ever shared that with me, because how old would she have been when she wrote that?
She was 7.
7 years old. So, how many children who are now adults today had a parent or a sibling or a child, for example, in Vietnam or Iraq or Afghanistan or Grenada, if you think about the military activity in Grenada in the 1980s and so forth. But we do want to also do a shout out to families that have been part of the great American process of the military service. Getting back to the political world, one of the significant differences that we have with Donald Trump coming back into office that I can't recall, literally, we've perhaps ever had this before in American history. Most people who are elected president, they go in for a 4-year term, and they are spending a portion of that 4-year term to build a legacy, to run on that legacy for a re-election for a second 4-year term. It's usually from day one. They're looking at an 8-year, ever since we've had presidential limitations of service. Trump comes in and he's got to do what he plans to do within a 4-year window. Then he's done. So it's a totally different time acceleration process for him, unlike anybody else that we can recall.
Absolutely. Part of his first 4 years was learning politics, because he was not a politician. Most of our presidents have at some time or another been involved in something political, either at a state level or as an administrator, or the senators. The senators, and what we need, in my opinion, as a president, is someone who has leadership abilities. Senators can have both, of course, and they do, but a lot of their efforts are collaborative. They have to be part of a group, whereas we're looking along. But the big situation with this is that after the Civil War, we became more centralized than I think the founding fathers wanted us to be. They gave limited authority to the central government, and as a matter of fact, they are limited powers, and all the rest of the powers goes to the states. So that's why the Supreme Court finally said, yes, the states should decide the abortion. They should have their abortion laws and some other things. So we may be seeing a shift in that direction. I think you're going to have a coalition of states, which is a small United States within a United States.
A miniature.
Yeah. I mean that's just from actual things. You have coalitions. You have coalitions of states suing the federal government. I think a big thing that's going to happen is probably all of these cases against President Trump are going to disappear.
Well, you begin to wonder if he's going to use his famous comment from The Apprentice show, which is kind of interesting. Got to talk about that. I'm amazed. No, I'm not amazed. I shouldn't be amazed. I shouldn't be surprised that we have never seen the replays of The Apprentice shows as a historical replay on cable or any television. I mean, I even forgot what The Apprentice was, and that was the #1 network show for NBC for 14 years. And his famous comment, he'd look and say, "You're fired." And I'm wondering whether that's what he's going to say to Jack Smith. "You're fired."
Well, to the extent that he can, the protocol is that the president asked for the resignations, even people who can't be fired, and so that's going to be very interesting. But I personally think it's going to be more bipartisan than we've seen in a long time. RFK coming in is a major move, and probably one of the reasons that he was reelected.
Do you see Tulsi having a major role?
I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I see Elon Musk, who apparently, and my goodness, you have to fact check the fact checkers, is that he has bought Fox News.
Oh, really? Boy.
For $25 billion.
Wow. You know, we write a check for $12.50 and we say, can we balance it on our balance? He writes a check for $25 billion and moves on to the next check he's going to write. Wow. Is he
wow.
Is he projected to be the first trillionaire in the world?
He is, but if he works for the government, you have to sign away your ability to act as a manager or an owner. You have to put that in a trust.
In a trust, correct?
Yeah.
What's interesting, back on what you said on knowing the political world, one of Trump's greatest issues that occurred in his first couple of months, probably his first year as president on his first term, he would make major appointments based on loyalty and trust of experience. And he made major appointments based upon people who had actively supported him on his first election. It was basically as he would do in the corporate world. You reward people who are producing, you reward people who are productive, you reward people who are successful. And a lot of those people were rewarded, but they did not have the internal knowledge of how to manage in a federal government level versus their comparable experience in a non-government world, a private enterprise sector. If you look at appointments, you look at knowledge. Do you have any projections at this point who will be the leader of the Senate?
Well,
I don't. I could guess, but I don't.
I can't say without a bias, but the one with certainly a lot of appointment is Senator Scott from Florida. So if it sounds biased, yes. But my goodness, all of the compromises that have to be made to come up with the leader. But I know on the opposite side that the status quo is ending, that the people who have had power minus the 4 years of his time will pretty much be sidelined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree.
And without mentioning names. So that is going to be a major effort. But I think this time he's going to bring in, he's going to open up and bring people from a lot of constituencies, particularly Hispanic and others. And that's a good business decision. But I think between having Musk and RFK and others in there as advisors, it will be more centralizing than what the opposition is always going to try to bring out the bad points, but that's how it works. That's
Yes.
where you come to that mean, median, and mode to where you satisfy the most people and dissatisfy the least.
It's kind of interesting. Tennessee has two names resoundingly mentioned as possible Secretary of State or Secretary of Defense. Our U.S. Senator Bill Hagerty has been on the top of the list for Secretary of State. Prior to his term as U.S. Senator, he was U.S. Ambassador to Japan. Prior to that, he was basically in the corporate world. Or Congressman Mark Green, who basically was our congressman until we were redistrict here a couple of years ago, who has been basically in a military veterans position. So Tennessee looks like it may have a possibility of speaking in the world within the new administration.
Tennessee
Yes.
works.
It does, because Tennessee has been basically, ever since the Civil War, has been a compromised state, in terms that people work together. Not always, of course, but it's basically been an area of compromise. If you were looking for the first 5 things that you think Donald Trump will be doing on day one, not only what his campaign speeches have alluded to, but what do you think will be the first 5 things he does when January 20th comes around?
I think will be to set up a procedure for removing all of the convicted criminals that are aliens. I think that will be first. I think they're going to have a priority list. Okay. The next thing is going to be that he's going to eliminate the federal personal income tax.
The total income tax, or you mean the tax on tips or the tax on Social Security?
He's going full out, because he can actually the personal income tax that we all have to file each year is not a major part of the operational funds for the federal government. So by doing that, he's going to get a lot of votes, but they have to make the money up somewhere. And what he is saying is it's going back to the tariff system, but he's going to bring back jobs here.
Yeah, most people don't realize, and there was lost in the political rhetoric of the campaign. Tariffs, you have to take a look at. Its primary purpose is not as a revenue producer. Yes, it puts a 20, 30, 40% add-on to a product that's made outside the boundaries of the United States, and it's sold to U.S. consumers. But what it does, whenever possible, it's a way of saying to an entrepreneur or somebody who's in business existing or somebody who has the capability, saying, hey, the price of that item is now 30% higher because of the tariff. Can you produce it in the United States and sell it in the United States and make a profit in the United States for under a 30% tariff? And many people say, of course I can. So that's probably the number one step to regenerate the production of goods and services. Services don't have a tariff, but goods in the U.S. as a result of, quote, competing against the price set for international production.
Yeah, well, we've tried several things, and this is where you have to separate the wheat from the chaff. And the conservative position is to reduce the tax rate. A lot of people say reduce tax. No, they reduce the tax rate. When the conservative side reduces the tax rate, they actually get more money for the government. Excuse me while I cry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, it's kind of interesting.
Laffer from USC, our guy.
And he's a Nashvilleian resident. Arthur
really?
Laffer. Yes, he lives in Tennessee now. And he's a guest now and then at Vanderbilt as a guest lecturer.
Good.
But on the other hand, Laffer had a lot of criticism during the Reagan administration on the curve, and sometimes the curve turned into a square or turned into a straight line. What people do not realize is tracking a dollar. If the dollar is paid in taxes or the dollar is paid in investment, if I have a tax bill of $1,000 and I now have that tax bill reduced from $1,000 to $800, will I reinvest that $200 into, quote, taking risks, creating, adding, building that will expand the economy, and as you said so well, Bobby, expand the economy, which will produce a broader tax base that generates a greater revenue to not only federal but state and local governments.
Well, that's their hope, isn't it?
Yep. Whether it works or not, sometimes can be a matter of discussion. Greater minds than mine are evaluating this, but at least we're talking about it. At least we're thinking. And I think if there was anything to come out of Tuesday, any election, I teach the students in American government. I said, think out of the box, be creative, come up with new ideas. Anytime I ever hired employees, I would say, I don't care if your first 9 ideas are squirrely, way weird. That 10th idea may be Shazam, just a phenomenal idea. Continually think of alternative ways. Think out of the box. Take a mental risk.
Exactly. I'll tell you, you should be teaching some of this. But, oh, wait, you are.
This is what, you know what, kind of interesting, I have, out of my classes, I have what's known as dual enrollment. And the dual enrollment are the high school students who are going to college, getting credits for their college, their general ed courses, in place of their high school required courses. And what is extraordinarily weird, and I see this at Motlow State here in Rutherford County, a student goes to graduation of Motlow State Community College. They're 16, 17 years of age, and they're getting their AA degree, their Associate of Arts degree, for completing their basic general ed courses for 2 years at Motlow. A week later, listen to this, Bobby, a week later, they go to their high school graduation and are getting their high school diploma after they have in their pocket their AA degree. Weird. We'll be right back. We'll be right back on one more commercial break to pay the bills.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Paid for by Estella's Pharma.
All right, guys, if you're only middle-aged but wondering why it seems harder to keep up, you're not alone. It may be caused by low testosterone. Testosterone therapy, or TRT, can help you get back to your best. But not just any TRT, not those websites offering only basic treatments. You have to see the provider specialist at Low T Center. They offer advanced personalized treatments with over a decade of experience. At Low T Center, you'll start with a simple test and get your results in about 25 minutes. Go to lowtcenter.com to book your appointment online. lowtcenter.com. Low T Center, reinventing men's healthcare.
At Bud's Tire Pros, we sell all major brands of tires, and we invite you to stop by today for that next set of tires. Or maybe you need us to check out your vehicle before you head out of town. We offer everything from brakes to batteries, alignments, and more. No appointments necessary, just stop on by.
I'm Allison Mitchell with Bud's Tire Pros. We're located on East Main Street, exactly 3 miles from the town square, 1 mile past Rutherford Boulevard. Visit us online at budstirepros.tn.com.
This is the Roundtable from News Radio WGNS on FM 101.9 and AM 1450 Murfreesboro, FM 100.5 Smyrna. Listen and watch at wgnsradio.com.
Segment of the Thursday morning WGNS Radio Roundtable, as we're having a visit with a wonderful friend, a gentleman that stays on top and alert of most things, all things I would probably say, was a great teacher I used to totally respect, and I'd have students come back and say, that Bobby Welch show, what a great teacher, and I certainly can recall those days. I'd like to make a kind of a reference, and in trying to build up information for American government classes yesterday, I looked at all of the letters that were online of congratulations from world leaders. And I was kind of analyzing the letters. Were they just traditional? Congratulations, we're looking forward to working with you. Hope it's a great time and what have you. But a lot of the letters had certain inserts in them that said, we are looking forward to once again creating and establishing an association that benefits us both. And there was this, I don't mean this critically of the Biden administration, but it was almost like saying, welcome back, Bobby. But Bobby, you and I can go back to putting things together and team. I think the Prime Minister of India was one special note. And the Prime Minister of India said, I'm looking forward to reinstituting this and this and this. And you begin to wonder, is that the world climate right now? Yes, it's interesting. Did he receive letters from Putin? Did he receive letters from the president of China? Did the rocket man from North Korea send him a, hey, my buddy, it's good to see you again, and so forth? So every day is going to be a news cycle day. I mean, hold on, even though we're just about ready to embark on the holidays with a wonderful Thanksgiving followed by a glorious Christmas, we still are going to see every day truly a news cycle. Can't be any more exciting, can it?
It cannot be, but we do not operate in a vacuum. President Reagan limited the number of vehicles the Japanese could send over here, so they increased their profitability because you could not buy a Japanese vehicle that wasn't full up. It had top of the line, and they wanted $5,000 over manufacturer's suggested retail price, which people were paying because of their reputation for quality.
Well, you remember, I have to say this, going back to history, what was the one thing that suddenly exploded the Japanese auto industry? It was 1973. And that, you and I remember, was the Arab embargo on oil. Gas, if you recall, I certainly do, gas went from 50 cents a gallon to $3 a gallon in just a matter of weeks to months when all of our oil arrivals were stopped by the Middle East. And we went on, do you remember, odd days and even days of filling up for gas? And you remember the fact that you were limited on the amount of gas you could buy.
You remember why that happened? From I learned from my student, Bandar bin Abdullah bin Turki Al Saud, who went to school where we both were.
AIU.
Yep, and he in 1953, Abdulaziz, the founder of Saudi Arabia, signed a 25-year commitment to the United States to provide us a barrel of oil at $2 a barrel. In 1973, that $2 was worth $1.50.
Correct.
In exchange for that, we built their airports, we built their buildings. It was a long-term relationship that most of the people have never heard about. That was the tit for tat business that we had, and that's why we had such low gas, and we didn't have to pump ours.
Correct.
And today, if we want to get into, and this is where we have to be careful, drill baby drill, our cost of production is $12 a barrel. Ours is 24, theirs is 12.
Right. And will we be able to compete? No, I was going back in the Japanese automobile industry. Suddenly, people were taking their 8-gallon or 8 mile per gallon Buicks and Pontiacs and Oldsmobiles, parked them on the garage, and they bought brand new cheap Hondas and Datsuns, which was the predecessor of Nissan, and Toyotas, and bought these auto economy cars. We created.
What automobile did you buy, sir?
I bought, well, actually, believe it or not, at that particular time, yeah, I bought a Datsun, and...
I did too, but you ended up with Saturns, which were specifically designed to compete against the Japanese. They never
exactly.
made a profit.
You and I both had Saturns. You had a blue one, if I recall.
I bought it because of you.
Yeah, we had twin Saturns. Is that correct?
Twin Saturns.
And I think,
Bill, you are awesome. Thank you for the credit here, but it belongs to you. You are one awesome individual gifted by God for what you're doing.
well, if you love what you do and you love life and you love the people that you have the blessing and pleasure to be associated with, it's an easy road to travel. And I think as we're concluding, going back to why we originally joined together this morning, Bobby, is to salute and say thank you to our veterans. Make a special point out there, folks, to if you see a veteran or a veteran's family, say, thank you, God bless you. It's we don't say it often enough. And I think, there were times in your life. I was so fortunate in the Navy. I sat in Hawaii for my active duty. So the only time I ever had any concern, I was on the air at my evening job at a rock and roll radio station in Honolulu. And there was the earthquake, the Easter earthquake in Alaska, major earthquake that hit Anchorage in 1964. And Hawaii was braced for a tidal wave. Huge tidal wave that was coming south from Alaska. People don't realize that when there's a massive earthquake in that part of the world, it sends the ocean up hugely. And I can remember being asked by the station manager, would you please stay on the air and take a look at, watch for the big tidal wave. We had a big window behind me, and I kept looking out the window for a 50-foot tidal wave coming across Waikiki Beach right into the mezzanine floor of Coral Radio. Never came, thank goodness. Bobby Welch,
Hallelujah.
Bobby Welch, it has been, as usual, a wonderful, wonderful pleasure. A friend, a colleague, an American, a veteran. God bless you, my friend. Give my best to Ann and your wonderful family.
God bless you, and same for your awesome family. Thanks, Bill. Goodbye.
Bye. We'll see you next week, folks, with the president of Middle Tennessee State University, Dr. Sidney McPhee.